Mayor of London is with us. Lots to talk about. I just wondered if you wanted to comment on that to start with, the Kurt Zouma kicking his cat. I don't know if you saw the video.
It's despicable. I think a number of things need to happen urgently. I think the RSPCA and the police need to work together to prosecute this player. I'm disappointed in David Moyse and West Ham, actually. I know how important 3 points are. I support a club as well, but I think they should have shown leadership and dropped him last night. And I worry when young people see Premier League footballers getting away with bad behaviour, or prime ministers or anybody else, it thinks it's OK and you can be successful. That's why it's really important for leaders and role models, and whether you're a footballer or the mayor or, you know, journalists, we're role models and we should lead by example.
Talking about mentoring, actually, that's a programme that you want to introduce in London.
Look, I benefited as a young boy from mentors. My teachers were great, my big brothers, youth workers. One of the things we're trying to do, in addition to suppressing violence by supporting the police, give young people alternatives to join in a criminal gang, to getting involved in criminality, for them to have their potential fulfilled by giving them a helping hand. So we're doing one of two things. One is to every young person to have access to good quality youth facilities, but secondly, every young person in need to have access to a dedicated mentor who can nurture, support and guide them when they're at that crossroads where they could make the wrong choice. And the idea is for this helping hand to particularly help those young Londoners who've been excluded from school, who may be at risk of, being exploited, maybe living in poverty, may have seen domestic violence at home, maybe in care. So they've got a mentor to help them have their potential fulfilled.
How will that work? How will they access that?
So for those young Londoners in pupil referral units, we'll have people going into the PRUs to help them. They've already been excluded from school. We'll have great partnership with councils, with youth workers, with those in the private sector. We're particularly working with those employees in STEAM jobs, science, tech, engineering, arts, manufacturing. So they will be working with us as well, because you and I, I'm sure, have both benefited from having people we can talk to, people who can guide us. And too many young Londoners don't, and that's why we've set up this scheme today.
And when does it start? It starts today?
It starts today.
And if people want to know more about it, not necessarily for themselves, but for...
It gives me an excuse to plug my Twitter account and also the City Hall website. All details will be given out today. We're particularly focusing on those people who we think are in need. Many people have the advantage of having role models anyway and mentors. Our focus is those in need who, with this helping hand, can have their potential fulfilled.
Just while we're talking about tweets, I've just been seeing Gillian Keegan has tweeted overnight she tested positive and still was in a meeting and decided not to leave because she was speaking or listening to three fathers who'd lost their daughters to suicide. Difficult position for her to be in. Should she have left or not?
I've just seen this now. Yeah. If it was me, I'd have let people listen. I've just tested positive, because you may be shielded and you may have an immunity issue. You should be informed of this. If you've had your boosters and your vaccines, you may decide to stay. I would have kept it silent and then made an informed choice. And then, fortunately, I've not tested positive yet. My experience, though, is the consequence of passing this on to somebody who may be immunity suppressed, who may have issues in relation to loved ones at home who are elderly, means you could inadvertently, they could pass it on to somebody else. The transmission, the Omicron is very transmissible. Yeah. And that's why I'd always err on the side of caution and let people know and then exit as soon as I can.
So she should have left then?
I don't know the facts of this case. I would almost certainly have left.
You also tweeted, didn't you, earlier on in the week when we saw that ridiculous nonsense just outside the Palace of Westminster across the road there, where Keir Starmer and the Shadow Foreign Secretary were trying to leave, and they were literally... in fact, that's your tweet.
Yeah.
Are you criticising Boris Johnson there?
Yeah. Can I still do this point head-on, Kay?
Yeah,
it's a really important point. I know you've been challenging politicians and leaders over the last few days about this. I think what Boris Johnson sought to do at the dispatch box a couple of weeks ago is at least two things. One is to distract us from talking about the law being broken by him and others, potentially, in relation to bring your own booze. And secondly, amplifying conspiracy theories which will snowball and which will become a talking point in relation to the lead up to the next general election. There is no doubt that these anti-vaxxers heard what Johnson said, and it normalised some of the views on the periphery, and you'll have heard some of the abuse was basically paraphrasing and quoting what our Prime Minister had said. And what you do often is, when you do this, those views that are on the periphery become normalised and mainstream, which gives people succour to behave in this way.
What should the Met do about stuff like this? I mean, it's been going on for ages now. If it's not these two, then it's somebody else. You know, they've harassed journalists, they've harassed all sorts of people, and they just seem to be able to do it and nothing happens.
Look, we're on a slippery slope here. On the one hand, I want you and me to be able to go about our business, mix and mingle with ordinary Londoners, ordinary people, and not have to worry about our security. The reality, though, is for good reasons, there's security coming into here. You know, people like me have security protection because there have been too many examples of politicians, journalists being threatened, sometimes, unfortunately, having their lives lost. And that's why this is a slippery slope. Why? Because I don't live in a society where you and I are cut off from ordinary people. So on the one hand, the police have a really important job to keep us safe. On the other hand, protest is perfectly permissible. I encourage protest, I encourage dissent, I encourage me being challenged, you know, by you and by others. But it's got to be done within the boundaries of the law and in a peaceful way. These people, these anti-vaxxers, they've disrupted meetings I've held. They've often been hateful and incited hate and be quite aggressive towards me. If we're not careful, you know, the next generation of Joe Cox's, Keir Starmer's, Sir David Amos's will say, you know what, I don't want to be a politician because it's too risky or dangerous. And their mums and dads will say, you shouldn't go into politics because, you know, life's too short.
Last time you were on the programme, actually, we were talking about the Partygate allegations, and you said that it was a slam dunk, but Boris Johnson is still in Downing Street. So what's going on? Well,
I suspect what he's doing is trying to hang on for dear life. You know, he's kicked the can down the road, saying he's waiting for the Sue Gray report and the Met Police report. I've got to be frank. I knock on doors regularly. The Labour Party benefits from Boris Johnson still being the leader of the Tory party and the Prime Minister. Our country suffers, though. And that's why I think it's really important for Conservatives who have the power to remove him to think, do I want to be like the Republicans in America who failed to get rid of Trump, or do I want to be like the proud Tory that I am, who understands the importance of law and order, understands the importance of high standards, and gets rid of this guy? And listen, I've got to be honest, for selfish reasons, right, as a Labour politician, as a Labour member, I want this guy to stay because he's a vote winner for us. But it just does down this high standards that we hold in relation to a Prime Minister being investigated by the police, breaking the law, breaking rules that many, many people were following. You know, I attended a funeral of my father-in-law during the pandemic. We couldn't do the stuff we'd like to do, limited numbers of people. One of my neighbours lost his life from COVID. I couldn't attend his funeral because I followed the rules. And there are thousands and thousands of families across our country who did the right thing because the Prime Minister changed the law, passed these rules, and not unreasonably, they are looking at the hypocrisy of the Prime Minister and hoping he does the right thing. And if he doesn't, hoping that the party he belongs to and those that work for him do the right thing and get rid of him.
The Met, and more precisely, Sadiq was criticised for the way that the investigation into what happened in Downing Street was carried out. You defended her at the time, but over the last few days, you've now said that she's on notice. What does that actually mean?
Well, let me distinguish the allegations related to Downing Street. You know, it's still an operational matter. It's not right for me to comment on operational matters. I'm a politician with some skin in the game. How would we feel if I, as a Labour politician, was influencing the Met Police Service to investigate a Tory Prime Minister? And that's why I'm quite clear I don't get involved in operational matters in the likes of live investigations. In relation to the Commissioner being put on notice, what I mean by that is I read the report from the Independent Office for Police Conduct, IPC, which set out in black and white some of the language used by serving police officers, 14 police officers, that was racist, sexist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, and some. None of the 14 are still serving. I was shocked, disgusted and angry when I read that report. And so when I spoke to the Commissioner, I called her in, I made clear at least two things. One, you need to show me, as the Police and Crime Commissioner, as the Mayor of this city, what your plans are to root out officers who are racist, sexist, misogynistic, and so forth. Two, what are your plans to win back the trust and confidence of those Londoners who have, I'm afraid, had their confidence knocked and shattered by the behaviour of our police service?
And what did she say?
Well, I'll be seeing her again in the next few days and weeks for the Commissioner to have the opportunity to come back to the questions I've asked her, and let's wait and see what she says.
And if you're not satisfied?
Well, one of the things I've got to do as the Mayor of London is to ensure those who work for me have the same high standards that I expect of myself. If it's the case that anybody who works for me can't deliver on the really important issue of ensuring Londoners have trust and confidence in them and those they lead, then I won't be staying silent about that, and I'll take action.
And what might that look like?
Well, let's wait and see. I mean,
it's not the first time, though, is it? I mean, we're thinking particularly about Sarah Everard. She stood by her officers and their behaviour on that occasion, but there was much criticism for that.
Absolutely.
There's a list. I won't go through the list, but, you know, there's a list of reasons why people feel that they're not very happy with Cressida.
Can I share one thing that's written by the IOPC that's really important, is the IOPC make the point these examples in Charing Cross aren't isolated or historic. And it's really important. Why do I say that? Because we police by consent. We rely upon people coming forward to report a crime. We rely on people coming forward when they've been a witness to crime. We rely on people to come forward and join our police service. If it's the case that members of the public haven't got confidence in our police service, by the way, we've got some brilliant police officers who are incredibly brave, and we should be really grateful.
Absolutely.
We've got these fine officers. But if it's the case that people can't do that, because they've not got trust and confidence in the culture in our police service, there are issues of systemic bad behaviour. That's a problem for all of us, and that's why it's so important and so profound. So let's wait and see what the Commissioner does in relation to what I've said to her. I've been elected by Londoners to be the Police and Crime Commissioner, and that includes holding the Commissioner to account.
Yeah, but let's cut to the chase. If you don't get the right answers, and she's been on notice, not just for this, but for many other occasions, as I illustrated one or two of them, then you would not hesitate in saying it's time for you to go.
Yeah, it's very important for Londoners to know that if anybody who works for me isn't up to the standards Londoners expect, I expect them to go.
And when will you expect to hear back from her?
We're talking about days and weeks.
And when you spoke to her the other day, was it a testy meeting? How did it go?
No, I'm not going to go into the full details and stuff, but I think it is in the public interest for me to share with you. Yeah, it was a 90-minute plus meeting. And the two things that are of public interest is me being quite clear in relation to the Commissioner needs to come back to me and show me that she has a clear plan, an immediate plan to root out officers like this, cultures that leads to this sort of stuff, and secondly, an immediate plan to win back the trust and confidence.
Final thought, something else that is troubling a lot of Londoners at the moment is the ridiculous amount of money that was spent on the vanity project that is the Mound at Marble Arch. £6 million to put it up. Goodness knows how much it's costing to take it down. What a waste of money that was.
I agree, and Westminster Council, need to be held to account to voters in Westminster. There are council elections coming up in May, and I'd suspect those people...
I know, I pay my council tax to them.
Yeah, well, I can suspect you'll be voting for them this May, hopefully.
I don't vote, I have to make that point. Then I can be level-headed and even-handed with politicians of all sorts.
I'd encourage everyone to vote Labour as a rule.
Of course you would, of course you would. And perhaps you'll be, I don't know, in number 10 before we know it. Who knows? You didn't say no there.
Well, I think I want Keir to be number 10 as soon as possible. Look, you got a good compare and contrast.
No, I meant you.
No, I mean, listen, Keir's the leader of our party and I support him fully. But you've got to compare and contrast between a man of dignity, somebody of high standards, a public servant his entire life, a serious person, honest, straight, decent, and Boris Johnson. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Sadly, we're out of time. It's always great to talk to you. We'll have to try and get you on. We're doing Ask the Education Secretary on Thursday, and we've got a bit longer with him. Maybe
can I just say, Nadeem Zahawi is the best Education Secretary in the last 11 years.
Wow.
Good example of a Labour politician saying good things about a Tory politician. One of the things about Nadeem, I met him 2 weeks ago, is he puts aside party politics and works for the common good. And he's also quite interested in fun, so good luck with that. OK, well, we'll play that clip to him tomorrow. Thanks so much indeed, Mr Mayor, thank you. Are you an Adele fan? I am, and wasn't last night great? And by the way, can I just say this? Adele, Dave, Little Sims, Wolf Alice, Dua Lipa, London, ruling the world. There you go, down with the kids. It's good to talk to you. Thanks a lot. I really must let you go, otherwise I'll be in trouble. Thank you.